Okay, I have a little after 6. I think we can pledge the allegiance to the flag. If you'd please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome, folks. You are in attendance of the Town of Canandaigua Planning Board Tuesday, March 8th public meeting. It's been duly posted, the agenda. If you need an agenda, they're out there. If you fellow signed in, good enough. All right, we're all square. Since we only have one person on Zoom, I'm not going to go through the protocol for Zoom. So I do want to introduce people that are here at the front table. We start at my far right with Kim Burkert. She's our remote access facilitator. She's keeping us connected. Zooming in with us this evening is Amanda Van Laken, a planning board member. Mark Tolbert, planning board member. Scott Neal, planning board member. My name is Chuck Euler. I'm the chairman of the planning board. I have Shauna Blanchard, who is our town planner. Chris Nadler has joined us this evening. He's our town and planning board attorney, and Lance Brabant, MRV group. So that's a small mighty group that we have. So is anyone here like to address the board regarding an issue that is not on our agenda? We call that our privilege of the floor. If not, everybody's here to talk about something on the agenda. I do want to point out that should an emergency arise, we have to leave the building. 2 exits to my right and left. Please make yourself aware of those locations. We had no legal advertising that needed to be done for this evening's meeting, so we can move on from that. And I'm waiting for Scott.
Scott's online.
Ah,
There he is.
there he is
Scott.
on the TV.
Hi.
Okay, I am for the purpose that people have agendas, I'm going to switch around the first 2 items and defer Venezia Group for Lake Breeze Way for just a couple minutes and handle Scott Harder, who is representing Ronald and Amy Cerisi, owners of property at a yet to determine address on Middle Cheshire Road. And Scott is here this evening with a sketch plan for a subdivision of 28.9 acres into 8 lots, each lot being over an acre. And with all that introduction, Scott, why don't you take it from here?
Okay, well, I wanted to thank Rocco for letting me to go ahead of him because I have another board appearance right after this one in another town. So this makes it very easy for me to achieve that. I spoke with the board. It had to be a week or 2 ago at your PRC meeting, and I got some comments from you regarding this concept sketch plan that we've done so far, which is just a simple layout of something that the owner would like to do. It takes advantage of the higher ground on the site because the views up there are nice. They're impressive. They allow the owner to have a larger lot, which is what he wants, separate from the other lots that are proposed. The lots are of good size. The driveway can go in and stay within the 10% limit. I received comments from Lance, I think it was last time, regarding stormwater, which we have not shown any provisions for at this point, but we would certainly do that. The board also in the PRC meeting spoke about common drives and their opinions about common drives. Based on that comment, I wasn't sure if it made a difference to anyone if we provided one of the lots, one of the upper lots, one of the 4 lots, for example, to continue the property line. So that's wholly on the frontage of Middle Cheshire Road. I guess that's kind of an interpretive thing on the part of the board. My experience has been that whether you do something like that or you put in an access, utility, and maintenance easement, you pretty much achieve the same goal. But we're happy to do whatever you would like. The other benefit that I got from the meeting that I had with you was I believe that I was informed that this does not have to be a conservation subdivision, that we had one item that has appeared on your environmental sheet that relates to visual, but that was all that we tripped in terms of your regulations. So I believe from that conversation, I was informed that this does not have to be a conservation subdivision. I think.
That's right. That's correct.
Confirm.
Yes, confirm.
Okay. So those were probably what you provided me last time was probably some of the best information that I could get at this juncture. We intend to work with that. We're intending to put these lots on septic. So as I mentioned in that meeting, before we get into soil testing and such, we'd like to have a pretty good idea of where we should site the leach fields to accommodate the proposed houses. So this step is very important for us. I guess I was curious as to whether other board members who may not have been at the PRC or anyone else has some input for us at this point.
Okay, again, we're looking at a sketch plan here. There's no commitment on the applicant's part or our part to comply or take advice from what we say this evening, but we're trying to give him some guidance. So
Right.
when he puts together his formal application, he at least has an idea of the way we'd like to see the lot develop from a planning standpoint. So that being said, anybody on the board have any suggestions for the applicant as far as how he can improve on his plan?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a comment or two just on the topic.
Sure.
With the driveway of the furthest in property, it looks like it's that 500-foot length. So do we need to think about the hammerhead turnaround for emergency vehicles in there?
Yes.
On lot 8.
Yeah, so any driveway that exceeds 500 feet in length has to have pullovers for emergency vehicle and then some mechanism for a turnaround at a certain point at the end of the driveway.
So they can come back out.
So they can come back up. Exactly.
And then I just noticed in looking at the map of this area, there's a couple of things that the entire property hits. One is that it might be in the farmland of importance. I don't know if Ag has taken a look at this, or if they've commented, or if Watershed, if Kevin O'Vaney's commented though. Yeah, but just general
Probably,
observation.
I don't think we sent that
We
to him
didn't,
yet because
we
it's a
haven't sent, but
sketch.
that's good to, yeah,
But certainly-
we will refer them. Yeah,
They'll get they'll get the preliminary application.
at sketch, we just
Just
wait
comments.
on, yeah.
But it's a good point, Mark.
Yeah,
Again,
thank you.
I think we ought to look at that. And speaking of the overall lot, any NRI issues, natural resource issues that we apply to this lot? I know we've got the scenic view shed that applies, I think, to the upper part.
Some of it, but in either way, the lots are big enough. That 1 acre.
Oh, yeah, no, they meet, I'm
Yeah,
just
they meet
thinking they are in the view shed. So I think, Scott, consideration might have to be given to, as part of the development, this some sort of remediation, similar to what we do with shoreline guidelines, I guess, in terms of
Like a
trying
response letter.
to mute
To mitigate
mute the visual effect of the lot. So you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay. And you have to designate, get this together with Sean and actually delineate the overlay district where it applies on this lot. So sort of have to pin that down.
The only
Yeah,
other
I went through your maps and it was a little fuzzy from the maps, just exactly where the areas might be. I mean, we've covered the site extensively up to this point. I mean, there are certain locations where the views are quite nice, and there's certain areas where you don't get much of a view at all. I'm not sure if it correlates exactly with what I saw on your mapping, but we can certainly pursue that.
Well, the overlay is relatively new. We haven't applied it that often. I think, again, once it's determined by looking at the mapping where it may apply.
Okay,
And you, the applicant, may have the ability to challenge it and say, well, geez, even though the overlay shows it here, if you, from a visual standpoint of the lake, you can't see it. So I think, but that the obligation is on you, the applicant, to disprove or counter the actual applications or the actual application of the overlay.
okay, no, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. I should probably plot that on the drawing and see how it fits the field.
And I think the last observation that I had related to that, Chuck, is it does list, it's a little bit hard to tell when you see it on the property, but it does list about 4% as hardwoods of importance on this one, when you look at the Encore data. Just an observation to take a look at that, any type of planting solution or anything like that when you're looking at it, and what you're gonna touch there.
Where are the hardwoods?
That's what I
Oh,
couldn't quite tell from being there.
okay.
That's,
Well, it's another thing the applicant will have to determine, I guess, again, in coordination with Shauna,
Yeah, we'll look at that.
as to where they might be and certainly take whatever efforts we can do to protect them, as long as they don't affect, I don't think they affect the property that,
no.
and it's pretty much a open
It's pretty
field.
open.
Yeah, I think it's along the one, I guess it would be the south edge is where it might hit it. but
Any
just
part,
looking at the
any part
Encore
of
data.
any detailed plan that they ultimately provide, they will have to show, the clearing limits, at which point, I guess that's where Scott and his team could identify if they are in fact impacting those hardwood areas that are being shown.
Okay,
That sort of looks like an amoeba going up in front of the lots, going up the hill. Is that line of like brush or scrub that's on the lot?
to my understanding, that's a tree row that existed like the one to the west of it that has since been removed. And one of the things that I thought we could do in terms of, the visual and what have you, is try to reestablish some plantings along there as a buffer. But I believe once upon a time that was a tree row.
Okay, yeah, there is something, I thought it sort of runs a little more parallel with Cheshire instead of on a skew, but that's probably what it's delineating. Go ahead. Go ahead, Scott.
No, you're correct. I mean, having walked it, when you get out there, and you probably can't see it today, but you'll notice that there's a definite area where a tree row existed once upon a time.
How your slopes on your driveways? Is that why you have the switch back to try to avoid anything too steep?
Yes, for the main residents, we know that we have to do that. I mean, that isn't engineered at this point. That's conceptual, but we know we have to do that. And so if that's not the correct alignment, which it probably isn't, we probably have to stretch that a little bit more. So the comment about the turnaround is correct. I agree, that's a good point. As for the other lots, the way up is actually established right now with kind of a farm lane. And that lane pretty much follows what we show on the drawing. And that's really the best way to get into the site. So farm lanes are sometimes good indicators of what a possible layout might be.
Tried and true.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, speaking of that, multi-lot driveway, essentially a private driveway.
Right.
I'm not a big advocate of private drives, but in this case, I think as long as we make sure that the design of the driveway is done to our standards, that we don't wind up with something that people can't pass each other on the road, that it's got enough width, it's got enough structure to it. I think, I could live with a private driveway. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. The only thing where you have a hammerhead at the end, you have that on the big lot. And
Right.
what that's going to do is cause you to have to create an easement on that lot. If you
Right.
Can you move that lot line northwest?
either move the lot line or bring the hammerhead.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And then Scott, along that same line of thought, can you make a can you extend lot 4 to Middle Cheshire? And cut it off of lot 3, that way you keep.
Sure.
That'll have just 4 lots total. Instead of adding an additional 2 to this shared driveway.
Okay, sure. Yeah. And I think based on Lance's comment at the PRC regarding drainage, we need to take a look at drainage control on here too, that is going to relate to that, but sure, absolutely.
Maybe just a concept, well, maybe just concept. Just drop them from there.
We're not running into an issue with having to have 125 feet of lot frontage on a road for these lots.
These
even
are-
though-
These all do have it.
But they're not on a public road. They're on.
Oh, on a public.
Oh, the back ones?
I know they came up in a application a couple months ago.
We can extend lot 4 so that it has 125 feet of frontage if that's important. We could also take lot 3, let's put lot 3 on the other side of the long driveway.
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, right. I mean, just a shared use driveway for 4 lots isn't okay.
Well, I just want to make sure it doesn't become a issue in the zoning determination that.
Scott, what are you proposing here? Is this a private road or a
Yes.
shared driveway?
Um,
I know.
Different.
what is the distinction between the two as Canandaigua sees it? What's the difference?
The extent to which it's built, the
Right,
the
standards.
standards to which it's built, as well as, you know, is it over an easement versus is it, you know, a separate lot to itself?
So a private drive would have more regulations associated with it, but I guess, Scott, one of the questions I was gonna ask, I'm assuming we'll be bringing water main up to those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots, maybe 6, and serve them that way with a dedicated main off of
Yeah.
Middle Cheshire.
If we could, and once again, this is conceptual, that's a good point. I'm trying to think if we could go for some type of services coming through there, individual services connecting. And the more we start talking about this, the more I think lot 3 needs to go on the other side of that long driveway to give us some room to make such connections.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think,
over here.
I bring that up only because I think that's gonna dictate whether you have a private drive and certain regulations, if you have a dedicated main, because then the town has to have access, or if it's a driveway. And I'll let the attorney kind of clarify between the two.
Let me give that some thought.
Okay, I will do.
Generally, we do not allow, but you know, generally we have a minimum lot frontage requirement. And as I'm realizing that this is a driveway, not a road.
It's a road
Yeah.
versus a
Well, it's not a
driveway.
public road.
What's the number of units that require,
Oh,
it changes it from a driveway to a.
yeah, and I just don't know off the top of my head. So Scott, if you want to follow up with the development office on that, I'll try and look at that tomorrow.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Middle Cheshire is 66 feet right away, is that correct, Scott?
Yep.
Okay, so it's 33 feet from center.
Mhm.
I don't know, do we need an additional easement, sidewalk easement along the Middle Cheshire?
I would think that we might,
Think it-
as part of the review, the planning board might consider requiring an easement for sidewalk along Middle Cheshire as we have started to incorporate on other projects on some of our main streets there.
I think that road's on the hit list for
Yeah.
Fleet Street.
You're correct.
Yeah, it is.
So Scott, we'd probably be looking for, well, probably a 15-foot easement from the right of way into the property for future sidewalk construction.
Okay.
All right. And the only other thing I have is, assuming the driveway, the common driveway for the lots stays intact, that whatever easement agreements you have or you generate for that, possibly a draft of those easement agreements be submitted with your application, so we can get a jump on that and have a better idea as to the rights and of those residences on those new lots as to what they're responsible for and what they're obligated to do in terms of maintenance and all that. So maybe usually a lot of times in this situation, it just sort of, okay, a condition is you got to provide easements for the driveway. Maybe if we have a draft of those easements sort of up front, it'll give the board, give me a better idea as to being assured that there's protection there for the new homeowners to be able to use those lots and driveways.
Okay,
Okay,
yes.
board have anything else for Scott? No? Okay, so I guess you'll take these suggestions back and chew on them and talk to the applicant, and at some point we'll probably be seeing hopefully an application from you.
Yes. Thank you very much for the input. It was very helpful. Appreciate it.
Okay, have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, our next application is CPN 22009, the Venezia Group owners of property at the terminus of Lake Breeze Way, requesting an amended single-stage site plan approval for a reconfiguration of the Fox Ridge Section 5B1 turnaround. And Rocco, you want to tell us what the change involves?
You're muted, Rocco.
Hey, Rock, now we want to hear from you.
Okay.
There you are.
Oh, perfect.
Welcome,
So-
Rocco.
So I broke my promise. I was gonna bring Fox Ridge back, but here I am. But just during the construction of this and the implementation of everything, it's become apparent that that circle just, because it's such a small neighborhood and there's such a small section of roadway coming in here, and discussions with Chris Jensen and Jim Fletcher, the highway superintendent, it became apparent that we could just use this turnaround, and that's an acceptable turnaround. That's a detail from the New York State, fire code. So we're applying, this basically is all about that. So that's what we're asking for. In addition to that, we've cleaned up a number of the grading issues, which we had a little water problem from up top, but we're proposing to put in addition to, supplying and paving and dedicating this turnaround, we're proposing to bring an underground drain line and tie it into the catch basin down on the southeast side of the hammerhead. So I think it's a big improvement. I don't see any issues with it. I think it's working now. It'll work in the future, and I think it's safe for the neighborhood. It allows for emergency vehicle turnaround, and that's the real reason we're here. So once we can get this cleared up, we can go ahead and dedicate this to the town, and button it up.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
I know we have some residents from Lake Breeze, and I'll get to you in just a second, but I guess really it's an engineering issue. I'm concerned, obviously, that Lance is satisfied. I know you did a review letter, and I think is this the plan that came in today?
Yeah, we addressed it. This plan addresses those issues.
Okay, so from an engineering perspective, hopefully it's.
Yeah, so the highway superintendent and the town engineer have reviewed the turnaround that's being proposed, which is really the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about, because it was already been previously approved by this board and construction has already been going on the site. The issue that, as Rocco mentioned, there were some issues with the hammerhead that was out there. So I was suggested they come back in and let's correct the issue. As a result of that, they're also correcting several drainage problems that we've been noticing during construction, from running over the pavement area, some from the sites based on how the driveways are connected, and some that were just in the field, changes due to swales and certain landscape items, they're not landscaping from residential properties, but the features, the natural features that are out there. So this does collect that runoff or most of that runoff and channel it back to our storm sewer system, which is where we would prefer it to go. So I think that would alleviate, based on the plans that have been provided, some of the headache that we've been noticing on this area. And then reconfiguring that hammerhead so that we actually have a hammerhead is what we ultimately need so that the town can utilize it for the turnaround ability. The one element that's kind of unique is the fact that you have all these driveways connecting to the town. You know, you have a fairly lengthy driveway, sorry, I'm shadowing, inside of the town right away. So, you know, one of the things that we talked about at PRC was, well, is there an opportunity here to minimize that right away so that the town doesn't have this huge area of land, but because of the project was already filed and people have already moved in, there's some issues with going through that process. So leaving it as is was probably the easiest of the solutions, with the one caveat that the driveway that is identified as gravel has to be paved inside of the right of way per the town's requirements. I think that's the one,
Yeah, we're agreeable to that.
you know, the one additional item that's come out of this is that, as I understand. But I don't have, I believe this addressed our comments and engineer comments, and I believe Fletcher has.
For the benefit of the new board members, the original was a true hammerhead. I mean, it had bump outs on each side, right?
It was supposed to.
And that would have meant if now it's more of a dog leg.
Correct.
So the bump out on the right has been
Extended,
taken away.
or I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the one on the left is remaining. I checked with Jim to make sure he was comfortable that what's left is maintainable from his standpoint, from snow removal and all that, and he seems okay with that. He has enough room for backing up. One suggestion I had, do we typically restrict parking in those hammerheads? So,
I believe so. I can't speak for the town, but I believe we have, and I think we tried to for emergency purposes.
yeah, I can see
Clear
somebody, you know,
obstruction.
I'm sure there's a lot of sociable people up in that neighborhood, and they have a party, and people just pull in an hammerhead and park it in, and it's sort of,
It's been an issue since we've owned the property. The old hammerhead they used to park in, and it's been a kind of a pain in the neck, but
okay, that may be a condition.
I'd like to see you put that on there so we can enforce it.
Okay.
It would certainly help us.
And if you folks have any issues with that, let us know when I call on you. Other than that, I mean, it is unique. I don't think we have hammerheads, we have cul-de-sacs, but this is more or less, as I said, a dog leg. So it's unique, but Jim said he can work with it. Lance says it'll work from an engineering standpoint. So I guess, unless any other board members have issues. No?
I do.
Okay.
So that's the fifth condition?
Yeah. Let me call on, do you fellas have anything to say? Are you just here to observe? Okay, step up to the podium and
Okay.
give us your name and
All
address.
right. Frank Macri, I live at 3632 Lakeview Way. Hi, Rocco.
Hey, Frank.
I commend Rocco for working with you guys. I know this has been a, ongoing thing with Jim and so forth. Come up with this plan. I have just a couple of questions. I'm assuming the 70 feet is what is required for the length of the turnaround?
Correct.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
So the turnaround where it stands right now is, like, you're gonna extend this 10 feet. My concern would be, does it intrude on this swale where the water, Rocco's building this swale, we built this swale, and the water's going down there, working very well now. If we now go 10 more feet, okay, I'm concerned about interrupting that swale.
It
okay?
won't. It won't.
Hey, hang on a second, Rocco, I'm talking to the board, okay? If it's 70 feet, why can't we just come 10 feet here, which is still your property, this is gonna be paved, and you leave that exactly where it is today, there's no farther than the pavement is now. And you have a little jut here. I was out there when the snowplow was out there last week, doesn't even get out to that level, okay? But I understand you need 70 feet. So the only thing I'm asking to look at is, rather than digging in and maybe getting into this swale, potentially an issue down the road, right? Which causes problems for everybody uphill, okay? And if this is your property, it wouldn't intrude on Greg's property either, 10 feet. It's not even close to his mailbox here, but coming 10 feet here, keeping that whole thing 70 feet. That's the only thing I'm asking to consider potentially without ruining Rocco's plan, because I know he's been working with everybody on this, and I commend him for trying to get this done.
So I'm not saying that can't work. I'm just saying that the way the trucks, they move in, the way they're in, you know, the K-turns basically that they do,
Mhm.
they need to be able to pull all the way in so that they can back out and go up. So in theory, not saying that that couldn't be an option,
Right.
but the one reason why we don't typically allow that or suggest that is because then you're coming in, you have to back up into that space, come forward, back out, it's more turning motions.
It's
I'm not
a-
saying that that's.
it's
I think we're accomplishing it now, right, is what I'm saying, with the pavement that's there, which is without the 10 feet. I
It's
have
a-
pictures I can share with you if you'd like to see them.
I got, and then the only other reason why they may not want, why the highway system may not want that, and I can't speak for them, is that now we will be utilizing the driveway as the town turnaround. And that has a maintenance associated with it that they may not want to consider. But
It's a huge alignment problem. You can't line up with the curb, you get in their driveway, you can't come out of it properly and turn back up the private road, which it's been suggested to us that we put an easement on that. So I understand Frank's suggestion. I think it's good. It just doesn't work, you know, and I'm not concerned at all about that swale, because we're gonna, even with the addition, we're still outside, we're not gonna affect that swale, so, you know.
just a point of reference, that swell has to remain.
Oh, no, I want the
It
swale.
is.
No, I'm saying, exactly.
I want the swale to work, and right now the swale is working.
Exactly.
And you're gonna go 10 feet closer to that swale, and that's a very high ground, and it just, now the town's gonna own that property, correct?
Mhm.
Town already
Then,
does.
You know, I
Within
know
the
Rocco
right-
says don't worry about it, but it's not Rocco's issue when you take it over. You have to make sure that swale operates. All I'm saying, before you say, if you can move it, now you're staying completely away from the swale. And I'm not saying to move it 50 feet, 10 feet. There was also some discussion about moving it down further to the south. Because you have a lot of property there. Now that pulls it away from that swale. I think your overall goal is handle the runoff. And make.
Yeah, but I don't want to rebuild that whole, I got a beautiful base. All I have to do is put the top on there. If I move that down, I got to rebuild the whole damn thing. Who wants to pay for that? I don't. You know. That doesn't make sense.
Rocco, do you have to add 10 feet to the bump out?
Yes,
Or is that, okay.
yes, yeah, about 8 or 10 feet. Anthony says 8 or 10 feet. I don't.
Doesn't get into the swale, gets closer to the swale.
Close to it. And it's
Okay,
very
so
high.
I thought when you first got up there that it meant moving the swale, but.
No, swale
We're
won't
not
be
touching,
affected.
we're not touching the swale.
Okay,
But it's, I think what Rocco's implying is that the current location being shown is fine with basically already out there. He's
I just
improving.
don't want to tear it all up and be subject to erosion and all that stuff again, when it's already all stabilized, planted around, it looks good. We peel off 8 feet behind, put in stone, pave over the top, done. You know,
yeah, no, I agree. If you do it on the other side of the road, you're messing with the alignment of the road, and you have
it's a nightmare.
an offset there, and you know, that wouldn't, I don't think it would look good, and I don't think it would work. Okay. Anybody else?
It's acceptable. It's within the fire code in New York State, so.
Okay, calling in on gentlemen here. Your name and address?
Greg Colbeck, 3637 Lake Breeze Way, Little Rocco. I know he's been working on this a lot. Talking to all the neighborhoods about it. And the only question I got is, and Lance brought up what they're proposing. If it doesn't work, because presently right now, there's a swale between my property line and Harvard's right here. There's a tremendous amount of water that comes from Frank's lot. It exits Matt's lots, it goes right across the street to here. just not clear of where's all this water gonna be going with what Rocco's proposing. That's the only question I got.
So we're picking it up with that. That's the whole purpose of building that, putting that 18-inch drain line in there. We're gonna pick it up in a catch basin and take it underground across the hammerhead to that storm manhole. So it's,
Kim, I think it's another plan, isn't there?
Yeah,
Shows the
this
storm
one.
drainage.
So is this the 18-inch, where's the 18-inch?
doesn't- This one doesn't.
well, it's the green line going across through the middle of that turnaround area.
Oh, there it is.
Right there. Okay, so that's going right there. And then we're gonna collect it. How is it gonna intercept between Frank's and Matt's and my house?
There are two catch basins.
There's two catch, everywhere you see the round circles, there's a catch basin.
There's a catch basin on either side of the road that picks it up from the north and takes it underground to the south.
Brings it down.
Is there a catch basin?
Rocco, just still point of reference, just make sure, because I don't want to, I believe the green is sewer.
Yeah,
Your orange is the storm, but there is a plan that shows it coming up here and tying in.
that's what we got this afternoon.
Ties in. This plan that I'm looking at now doesn't show that
Right.
storm.
Kim, go.
But there is a storm sewer that was provided on the original.
I did email the drawings to Shauna and Chris, so.
There's a catch basin on one side, catch basin on the other side, and it runs down precisely
Another.
to the existing. So right now, it's not being collected, it's just being conveyed.
Yep.
Now, the new system will collect it and bring it away from you.
And that'll work. Because I know, I've been there when it rains.
Yeah.
And I know Rocco has, we were out there and that water just.
No, it's not, listen,
I agree.
listen, folks, it hasn't worked. And that's been, that's why we're doing what we're doing, because it hasn't worked and now we're gonna put in something that works.
I just wanted
It's
to,
either
just wanted to understand it.
First site plan and
Rocco.
a second site.
But yeah,
plan.
they're
Pull up that site plan
now
to
flow to a conveyance
the
system.
site plan from today, yeah.
One front three.
Yeah, it was on your website, the new plan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is. There's a drain
There it
line.
is. There it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a storm.
Here we go.
That will work.
So there's your inlet with a grate, He's gonna catch the flow from the swale
Thank you.
here and then the road, right? So whatever overflow comes back into this one. And this catches flow from this side to this swale and then goes down through the pipe and ties into the existing
Yep.
catch basin that he's gonna take
Yep.
the manhole off and put a grate down here.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that presently, right now, it's coming down Frank's
Right.
front yard, and that's not gonna happen.
Right now, it shouldn't happen because you're gonna have an inlet here,
Right,
a grate, so the water can go into the pipe and be conveyed somewhere. Right now, it's all being done over the ground.
No, and the only other thing I want to bring up, and I think Rocco said he's gonna take care of this, is that my natural drainage drains to the street. That's
Yeah.
gonna be incorporated in the,
That's the other good thing about this project, is he's doing more fine grading along the roadway so that we have more of a conveyance away from the property.
Lance, what he's talking about is his basement drains gravity.
Okay,
And right now it daylights right in above the gutter there and it's running down the road. And when we have cold conditions, it's icing up. So as we go by that, we're gonna connect it into this buried system.
okay.
Well, I got one more question, and this is to the town. Okay, still good.
No.
I guess I'm done, thanks, Rocco.
Okay, up to the podium.
Oh, I gotta go to the
Yep,
podium.
yeah, but
Alright.
you're on
They
TV.
usually give me a minute, I take three, but that's okay.
Give me a minute.
So now. By the way, we're comfortable with the 10 feet going that way. We're just trying to say, does it make sense to come the other way a little bit? So the swale's okay. Rocco builds this, town owns it. Town's responsible for making it look nice as an entryway into the neighborhood. To the private drive, because you own the property. It's gonna be dedicated to the town.
Right.
So are they responsible for, if this is gonna be a high wall here, you guys are gonna take care of that, whatever, or?
So right now, what's proposed is grass area
Okay.
inside of the right of way. The right of way is the main boundary, right?
Yep,
Around, so everything inside of that area will be dedicated to town and be maintained by the town. So if there's cracks or things or divots, those type of things typically as the normal maintenance would be required.
I think the property owner mows the grass.
I believe so.
Yeah, it's.
I don't think the town's gonna mow the
no,
grass.
we understand that,
Okay.
but,
But all the infrastructure.
But the
pipes,
infrastructure and road, I think.
okay.
Yep, the road, how many structure you have, yeah, that would
Snow,
be,
snow plows.
okay. Last call.
Yeah, one more question, now that I see this. This is my driveway. Where does my responsibility start and end? Is it here or is it into the road?
You own and maintain the entire driveway.
So from here to here?
Yep, to the
But
edge
the
of the road.
town, for maintenance purposes, requires all aprons. Typically, that far, right, to be paved. Unfortunately, yours is all inside that right of way, and so because it's all in the right of way, we have to at least identify that the whole thing has to be paved, that's inside of it.
But paved and maintained is
Paved and maintained by you.
so from my house to the center.
To the street, to
Well,
the
everything,
edge of the
yeah,
street.
you would own and maintain the entire driveway, but the only portion that has to be paved for the town criteria is what's inside that lot, yep, exactly.
I'm not going to do a driveway from here to here.
No, I know, I get
But-
you.
So it's gonna go into here, but just so I know in the future that this is town property and that and they maintain this section.
So like if the town had to do maintenance on any of the facilities in that, they would have the right to go, do the work, put back the material for you and clean it up so it looks back the way it
And
was.
repave it, because as you know, the sewer line has been dug up
Right.
4 or 5 times.
But if there's damage to the driveway over time that's done by who knows, not the town, that would, and you wanted to fix it, that would be your responsibility.
Got it.
And plowing snow.
And plowing snow from your drive.
Say that again.
The town's not gonna be plowing your snow.
No.
Okay.
They're gonna come up the street and plow the way they've been doing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which works
Yep.
fine. You know, they do a great job of doing it.
All righty, anyone else for the audience? Anybody online? I think we're ready to move on. So I hear that if our engineer is comfortable with the current design, our highway superintendent's comfortable with it. So I think we as a board are we're ready to act. So I'll entertain a motion. We don't have to do seeker because that was all done many times over
Many times. So
regarding Fox Ridge. So all I need is the motion to amend the final site plan. If someone would make that motion, I appreciate it.
I will move for CPN 22009, and we've got 5 conditions now, Lance, is that
I
correct?
believe the board suggested adding one regarding placing a note on the plans that says no parking will be permitted in the hammerhead and that a sign be provided.
Okay, so with the 5 conditions listed, with number 5 addition of no parking restrictions within the hammerhead.
I'll clean up the language, but that's essentially what it was.
Just want to make sure we have the right revision date on the plan. The plan that we got today, I don't know if it has an
It's
actual
3/8.
revision date on it.
Let's make sure it does.
Did you put a revision date, Rocco, on this? You turned in today?
Yeah, they put it, I'm sure they put on a revision date. They've actually added some plant pages too, so.
Okay.
So I'll just say
I got
March 8th.
3/8/22 at the bottom.
3/8/20, yep, March 8th.
2020 is the plan, yeah.
Okay. That correction, if Scott accepts that amendment,
Yes.
we will seek a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Rocco, is this Fox Ridge for the very last time?
Fox Ridge out.
Got it.
Signs out.
Oh, boy.
Good night, folks. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, guys, for coming out.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate your input.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, yeah, CPN 22007. We got a email from the applicant saying that they're working on some of the architectural renderings that are required under the form-based code, and they did not submit them, so we are going to defer review of the sketch. I don't think it even requires a motion because it's a sketch.
Nope, you're right.
So when do we want to defer it to? 22nd or?
That agenda
Well,
is full.
I don't think you have to do it this week. Say,
Well, just trying to get an idea of what's happening when. 'Cause
I
If
would-
we can move it to the 8th, excuse me, the 12th,
Which we do
April.
need to talk about that
just
date.
just
We need
tell
that date.
Glenn that 22nd is too full and we'll do it on the 12th. Okay, He asked for the.
We were
That you can
asked,
absolutely.
Chairman, we were asked to move the planning board's date on the
Oh,
12th
yeah.
to the 13th.
Start with that.
You want to talk about that at
At
the
the
end?
end, yeah, yeah. Okay, can I have an approval for the minutes of the 22nd? I think we were all here for that. Mark was remote, but he was here. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes that John prepared from February 22nd.
I'll second.
Motion is second, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay, surety. We're gonna write a check tonight. We got a surety request from David and Laura Adetta, owners of property at 4385 CR 16, requesting return of their surety in the amount of
2,400.
2,000, yeah. $2,466.10 for soil and erosion control. I assume that's the balance of the total.
Correct.
So have a motion, please.
I'll move to release the 246610 for CPN number 19-069.
Okay. Good second.
I'll second Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The debtors get their money back. Referrals from the town board, there are none. But I just, at this point, I just want to mention, I think you received today from Shauna a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that Doug did at the committee kickoff meeting last week. And it's a real tutorial, all in one simple nutshell of where our conservation efforts, what we can do, where we're trying to acquire funding. And it's, please, look at it. It's very interesting. It doesn't take long to go through. I think Doug did a great job on it. We can discuss it if anybody has anything at a later date. Nothing from the ZBA, nothing from code enforcement. Comprehensive plan, let's not get into that tonight. Unless somebody wants to
No, no,
bring
you're
something
good.
up, no? Amanda, I see you sat in on the committee kickoff
Yes,
meeting, and have you been in touch with Karen Parkhouse at all? Or will you?
I reached out to Sarah, I believe. I have not reached out to Karen, so I will be doing that, and I will be attending probably by Zoom the next meeting that they have on the 18th, I believe. It's third Friday, yeah, the 18th. this
Friday
month.
at 1.
This is in reference to affordable housing.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, under other business, we have a action to take regarding the property of 3535 State Route 364, now referred to as Sunset something or other, yeah. Okay. So it will include 33.1 acres of 31 single-family lots ranging from 0.46 acres to 2.74 acres. And the action we would be taking tonight, if everyone's in agreement, would be declaring ourselves as the lead agency to begin the seeker process.
Intent, just to make sure it's clear.
The intent.
Yeah.
Okay, which would start the 30-day clock, which is analogous to what we did when this application came before us previously.
And to be clear, the 30 days, it's a minimum of 30, assuming that all agencies gives them the opportunity to correspond. But it could go longer if the board needed to. In terms of you go 30 days and you're still needing information to come back to you, you have the right to wait and seek that information to help you get through the rest of it. But the 30 days is there to give just enough time for those agencies to respond back. And that gives you guys the opportunity as a potentially the designated board to complete that process that says if we don't get a response in 30 days and we don't deem it that we need it, then it allows you guys to move forward without it.
And that 30 days starts from when you send out the packages.
Correct. Well, typically, the resolutions that we've provided offer a suggested response date. And that's 30 days from a time that we feel is needed for us to put the packages together on behalf of the town, make sure that we have all the correct information, and then sending it out. Usually we get it out with 33 days, let's say. So it gives more than enough time. And it's all done electronically, which makes it even more efficient. But there is a buffer suggested tonight for your consideration that gives MRV Group the rest of this week to get it packaged up and sending out, with next week being the starting date.
And you just received the revised EAF.
So
Yeah.
one of the items that the board has to do as part of this process is we review the full EAF part one, and then we offer suggested comments back to the applicant. And that full EAF part one can be revised between now and before the board makes a decision on the seeker. However, I'm suggested to Brendan via conference call earlier today that several comments be tweaked and changed if possible to reflect what I think are needed changes to it. I have a letter that I can forward to the board for your record, so that you have record of what those changes are. And it needed to be signed. I didn't have a signed version. And the reason is we want to make sure that information is getting provided out to those involved and interested agency as complete a package as we possibly can. I don't believe any of the items that we've identified were substantial or would result in adding a new involved agency or tweak concern from an agency. But we feel like some of the questions could have been answered as yes, maybe a little bit more information could be provided on the difference between lot sizes that are being proposed and the phasing that's being suggested. All of which are very preliminary at this time and will probably change anyway, but we wanted this to be more closely representing the package that we're ultimately sending them.
So you looked for any unanswered questions?
Correct. All the answers, yes. There
Because
was,
that could be tough when you get into part 2 and 3, because you base your
right,
response on parts 2 and 3 based on part 1. If you don't have an answer to part 1, then
right. We made sure that all the questions that had to be answered were answered. All the ones that were required to be yes because of something that the town has or based on this location are identified properly. And they were, there was a couple that we added in, for example, the description, we wanted to make sure I identified the private drives. We also had some questions on adding some agencies. Again, the EAF part 1 doesn't have to have all-inclusive agencies. Our goal is to make that all-inclusive list for your consideration, which I provided to you as a demonstrator where they would be going with it. But we had some of them be added in to make sure it was reflected. Example was Town of Canandaigua Highway Department. They're not necessarily an involved agency, but they're an agency nonetheless that we want Fletcher's consideration for.
I think the last go round as far as agencies, we include the school district and I think FLCC. And I'm not sure if
I don't know.
they were
that-
on your list.
Yeah, I think then that's a good point. We can add them in because I don't recall.
They're not on the
this-
list.
On that project, yeah, we definitely.
Yeah, well, I think FLCC asked to be. They
Yeah.
came to
Right,
the
because they
meeting.
came to the meeting.
And
So they would be interested.
somebody suggested school district was future school populations.
Hmm.
So,
So I would suggest putting them on the interested agencies section, which I should do. And then I will.
You've got hope on.
Hope was on there. I'll go through the list in a bit. But so the questions that I have that related to the EAF, I'll forward to the board. My suggestion is that if the board were to consider moving forward tonight with declaring their intent to be lead agency, what would happen is Brendan and his team would provide a response to this letter, a revised EAF part 1 signed. And then once I received it, that information would come to you guys, and then I would be able to forward it out to all the involved and interested agencies as part of the lead agency coordination. This board, for clarification, still has the right to comment on that EAF going forward from now to then too. So there's additional questions, you most certainly can still comment on it.
But there would be no further action by this board before you sent.
Yeah, there would be no other formal action by this board prior to going out. And the 30-day window could change if I didn't get it within the time period allocated.
so
But I believe that was forwarded to us late this afternoon from Brennan. I just haven't looked at it yet.
So folks, all we're doing tonight is just declaring our intent to be the lead agency. There's no commitment on our part. We're not going to discuss the application in any way with Angelo or anybody. So it's just getting this clock started. So next step would be a public hearing to start the review of the subdivision in its entirety. So anything else you want to mention regarding the resolution?
I have, you guys have seen the involved and interested agency lists.
Yep.
Any questions on the particulars? Emergency services.
So you should have 2 fire and at least 1 EMS on it.
Cool.
Yeah, I asked the board to please review this part 1. I think we found out in our previous subdivision that it's important that everything be acceptable and to our liking and be complete before we move on to considering parts 2 and 3.
Yeah, I didn't have a fire district, but I had the Ontario County Emergency Management Office, but I'll add the fire districts. Make sure
I
we-
thought we had
On page,
Crystal Beach and, or was that for, that was for the referrals, for the actual
Yeah, the town of Candida has a different referral
list,
list.
yeah, that's what I knew I had seen fire.
But that doesn't mean I can't add them in, I'm sorry.
Scott?
no, I was just, on page 3, it does mention, but that's under zoning, existing community services. Canandaigua Fire, Canandaigua Emergency, Finger Lakes Ambulance.
Yeah, they're required to list those.
Okay, and then who are we
Quite
adding?
frankly, so that we can include them.
Right, so that's what, those are the ones that I'll add in as interested agencies.
Okay.
So that, and to be clear, an interested agency doesn't necessarily mean that you guys are gonna get feedback from them, and doesn't necessarily mean you have to consider the feedback that you do get from them, if you do. But they're agency that could be of importance, they may wanna get information on it, so we identify.
And then FLCC was the school.
Okay, so again, it's clear tonight, we just discussed the handling of the seeker and nothing further was discussed. So let's move on with a motion to intent to declare lead agency regarding this application.
Okay, I'll make the motion for CPN 22-012 that the planning board, we declare our intent to be the designated lead agency for the seeker.
Very good. Second,
Second, Amanda.
and a second. Any further discussions? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we are declaring.
Declare.
Declared intent.
Intent.
Do declare.
So between now and when I get this updated EAF, a package will go in the mail or via email out to all the identified, involved and interested agencies, which I'll revise and forward back to the town by tomorrow. And you'll also get my comment letter and you'll get to revise the EAF forwarded to you tomorrow, assuming I've received it. Okay, that way you have record.
For the benefit of our audience, do we have an idea of what our schedule, when we would consider a public hearing, or does it depend on your responses to the declaration?
I will let Chris answer the technical part of it all, but I believe you have to have a public hearing because of the nature of the
Oh, yeah.
project and subdivision, right?
Yeah, it's coming up. Probably.
As long as you have it before you make a final decision on the application, you're
It doesn't
compliant.
matter, right?
But typically, we've opened the public hearing during the environmental review so that we can get their input as part of our review of the environmental concerns of the project and incorporate them into ultimately your decision. When you hold that hearing is up to you.
I guess I would recommend, I agree with everything Lance just said. I would recommend, not rushing a preliminary hearing or a public hearing. Because once you don't have the secret information, that's not gonna do much good, but.
Okay. Well, we know we have the 30 days. I mean, we have to let that one. So now
So
we're
right now, the
into
30
April.
days is scheduled to end April 13th, based on the time frame that I've allocated to get this out.
That's in the resolution.
So you have a meeting on the 12th, but your meeting date
So we
potentially.
need
will get to the
potential
13th.
13, yeah.
Okay, we can work that out. I don't want to discuss the application any more than that. Okay, See, any update on training? I know Mark did some training, got a certificate in. Checking anything else anybody else has before I have a couple things here. Metros expires.
Metros expires on the
18th.
18th.
Have you seen?
We have
either
seen
here?
or heard nothing. We have reached out at least twice
Okay.
to Jeff Marks, Brennan. Right?
This is the subdivision over on
Bristol,
Bristol Road, next to Hammocks.
yes.
It was a
With the
single,
long, yeah.
single
conservation
cul-de-sac. It was a conservation subdivision. And
It's a skinny.
we worked long and hard. We worked long and hard with the applicant developer to come up with a plan. We thought was good, but we, nothing's been done as far as moving toward getting the plan signed.
What's left? We don't have, what else is on their conditions?
I don't monitor the
Conservation
conditions.
easements,
What one is this again?
Metros,
Metros.
conservation easement language. We haven't heard anything, so I wouldn't know.
I remember we
They're
issued,
not-
yeah, I think.
We've granted 2 extensions, 2 90-day
Right, so
extensions.
this was absolutely.
Okay.
Brennan's request or just?
Yeah,
Yes.
and we've granted 2, but I think we have a policy. 2, that's it, you back to the drawing board a little bit.
I believe they're pretty close to being, I mean, technically, most of the things have, I know our comment letter have been addressed. I issued an MS4 approval and town engineer approval letter of it, so it's just that whatever element, I don't remember the conditions of approval, so you might be right. There might be several easements or stuff like that that we haven't technically submitted yet, but in terms of reviews,
Okay,
they've been ready to go for a while.
all right, well, if the 18th comes and goes, and that's between now and the next meeting, I guess. I don't know, does Chris send a letter, or did you just
No, we just let
try to
them
bring
know.
plans in? Okay, let
Yeah.
them know. I would
I'll
check
let
with,
them know one more
check with
time.
Brennan one more time. He knows the clock is running out. Okay. Flutterman, you said you're gonna put on the 22nd, right, for extension?
Butterman
extension
on the
request,
22nd,
okay.
yes.
So we'll see that on that agenda. On the 22nd, we have Uptown Point, which is Rocco's industrial subdivision over on Brickyard Road. It's got like 5 lots. He wants to 4 new lots, 5 being the remaining lot. We have Rocco also representing FLAH Properties LLC, Thomas Road, requesting a single stage subdivision. That's sort of behind Farnsworth, or Randall GMC Buick. That's in the form-based code.
It is in the, which one? Sorry, I was talking to Chris.
FLAH.
I think that was the one that I sent the email to PRC.
Thomas Road, oh, this 2 lot
Yeah.
is not
It's not,
in the form-based code, no. You're thinking the other side, you're
That's
thinking
on the
Summers.
Yes.
Thomas,
West side is not, right?
this piece.
The one on the east side next to Summers, that is, right? Which one is that?
This is not next to Summers.
If this is behind Farnsworth, it's on the west side.
This
so
is-
that's
On the west
not- Yeah,
This is on the west side, it's further over. It's not form-based code.
What's the street that runs behind?
Summers.
Summer.
Yeah,
And it's-
Summer, on the other side.
It's the corner of Summer and. It's the corner of Summer and Thomas.
This is not form-based, no. You're not, you're thinking of, you're thinking of a different piece. Pretty sure.
Okay,
I don't remember.
I know.
So,
I pointed out to you, and I think you said I'll pick that up when I do my CLD.
Yeah. And it's not,
Okay, okay, we're good.
yeah, we're good with that one.
If it was form-based, then it creates a whole nother issue.
He pulled, yeah, he has multiple projects. That one that you're talking about, DLD, is not going forward right now. I know what you're talking about.
That's
Or
the one that has the,
form-based code.
The gas line easement, remember Rockland City wanted to move it up out of the easement?
Actually, Uptown Point, 05 has the easement too.
Okay, all right. The Sandy Beach. Did Greg or Mr. O'Rue ask to move that to some someday beyond the 22nd?
Nope, they actually were here
Okay.
tonight.
Well, Okay, they're going to ZBA.
Oh, geez.
I know, I felt that.
They're going ZBA
They're
next week.
doing ZBA next Tuesday.
Okay, so assuming they get their relief from ZBA, 22008 will be here on the 22nd. And then we've got Sarah Linda's property on South Menteith. Okay, Center Point has, phase 3 has postponed,
It's
right?
postponed, yep.
Just clean up a couple other ones. Parsons, he withdrew.
The Knott Road
Knott Road.
withdrew, yep.
Has Westbrook formally withdrawn on Linda?
Formally. Let's take a, we'll look. I don't know if
Okay.
there's been a formal.
I think there was an email saying until further notice or something. And then last one I have is Finger Lakes Radio. And
They have, that's been tabled.
Okay, that's
Let me
been
check on,
Oh, yeah, they were looking for some
Finger Lakes.
easements or something, right? Or something.
I thought they withdrew their application.
I don't know if it was a formally.
I don't
withdrawn.
remember the language, but I want
That
to say
was
that
the
it was
one
formally
Chris had the
withdrawn
issue with the
so that he can
violations.
correct the violations on.
Yes,
So he's
But
gonna
they-
correct
We
them.
were thinking they were gonna table it to provide that language, but I
Yeah,
think he submitted a request to withdraw it so that he can work on correcting the issues.
All right, sorry to take up all the.
So right now we have the 4 and then Thornton is on or not?
Thornton,
no,
no.
Not
that
for
will
the
be
22nd.
April.
We'll move him to the 12th.
Okay, so that's,
well, now you gotta talk about that thing that you didn't want to talk about.
The date, we have to talk about the date.
Ah, okay. Do we want to meet somewhere else on the 12th or meet on?
What's happening here?
There's a trial here that day could go into. the-
I'm okay with the 13th.
It would be a movement from Tuesday night to Wednesday night.
It's the one that I remember.
What do you have on the
Is
12th?
that your birthday? Oh, we can't do it then.
It's-
Or we could.
Could.
we don't really, we don't celebrate.
We used to
birthdays.
literally
bring a
have
cake.
work
It's
meetings in the
fine.
conference room at the end of that hall.
Depending on how big a crowd.
We used to overlap, we used to share a meeting like once a month with the zoning board. The zoning board, room and the planning board met.
How did you do?
Really
With the
easy.
public?
Fit like 15 members in the public.
In the Oriana room? It's way pre-COVID. It's way too close.
We used to meet in the locker room in the garage too.
Oh, yeah, remember that?
The old
it's
locker
still in the highway garage.
What? Really?
Yeah,
It's literally where we used to meet.
yeah, we used to meet in the locker room. I mean, now you have a nice conference room.
Or, I mean, wasn't there some, there's gotta be a place that we can.
There's other.
I don't think it's much of an
places,
agenda.
Or can't we just,
We have to advertise it, right?
that's
We'll be
why
in the
we're,
meeting.
yeah, we have to advertise it. So we just
The
need to figure
library.
out where and when.
All right,
Look at the agenda.
the planning board delegates that responsibility to you to find a place that's a great place.
Well, is the great place gonna be the 12th?
Because if it was the 13th.
Because they'll be I'm fine down the hall and we can do the Zoom from down the hall, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
we can.
So, okay,
Oriana. Okay,
okay.
all right, the 12th it is.
So it'll still be on the 12th as of now, and we'll find a alternate location. Anybody else have anything else for the good of the group? Chris, good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I think this is the first time I've been in, here in person with our new members.
Oh,
It's used to come all the
Nice to see you
time.
without the mask. in person.
See,
Yeah,
this is
without
the
a
bottom of my face.
Out of that screen.
It said my name.
I've been working on the EV plan,
ah, okay.
and I guess I've seen a little bit of guidance as to how far we want to go. So what I thought was going to be a relatively simple project about, this is what they look like, this is where we should think about putting them. It can get pretty complex depending on what we want to do. Related to, but what could you do? I think in some ways we want to define a position of, are we in favor of them or not? For example, some of them do include solar, for example, and I know that's been a point of discussion. And then it gets into, even gets into like parking setup and everything else as well. Regionally, there's not a ton of information. I'll look forward to talking to you some more about that too, Lane. There's related to what happens with how other towns are handling. it. So in New York State, there's not a ton. There's some, most of it's handled by code. And other townships across the country, there's a multitude of ways that how they choose to incentivize, handle and everything else. What are you looking for?
Well, I would say, assuming that we're in favor of trying to promote the growth of EV stations, that we look at ways of locating them. Do we put them in our code that if you're doing a commercial complex that, just like handicapped parking spaces, you have to provide a certain number of EV stations? We're not getting into the design of these things. I mean, that's.
Well, I mean, I think that could be short-sighted for a code revision. You don't know what where the technology is gonna be 5 years from now. 5 years previously, if you put that in, you would have been viewed as lunatics.
Yeah.
And then, are we gonna have charging stations or solar stations or, fairy dust charging
I think
stations?
if you have a generic term, that would be, you have to provide some sort of
Renewable energy.
Renewable
vehicle.
energy.
Yeah, that's true.
and that way the, applicants, especially for commercial, I don't see it occurring too much in residential, maybe multifamily.
We put them in our multi-families, one or two.
Oh, yeah, I can see it there,
But I guess the other thing I would say, unless weighted by the planning board, because 5 years from now it may not be commercially feasible. They might not be popular. They might exist, but not be popular enough to pay the $40,000 to install one. If your tenants or your clients aren't gonna use it.
especially when there's prototypes where you pull up on a pad.
Yeah, those.
Man, they are
that's-
cool.
Oh.
So a.
Oh, you just
Like-
park
like-
your car in
like-
van and charge your car.
You set your
So
phone on it.
in general, most of them have been residential so far, when you look at the data, and I've got a
Oh,
couple of
really?
meetings, I got a couple of meetings this week that'll get into the specific Ontario County data too. So Doug's given me a couple of contacts that have already pulled some of the data for us there, so we'll have an idea of what's already here. And then in general, we can see trends on what might be coming. And then we have to look at the tourism factor that happens during the summer months here too. I think.
Oh,
But in general, the, the next favored place ends up being workplace. People either charge them at home or they charge them at the office in most cases. Those installs are, I'm guessing it's about 8K in the research for a basic installation there, because that's what NYSERDA's incentive was for.
I was gonna say, you can usually get it paid for.
Yeah, so they're not,
Right now.
well, right now they're not, they've stopped it again from what I can tell. I don't know if they'll start. I think if oil continues to do it for the next 6 months, we'll probably have a lot more interest.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think through as to how far, because there's other things that we could look at as a community that incentivizes them. As opposed, and there's some communities that don't want them. So other communities have a guideline that says we don't want to see them. They're okay if they're
Could
there.
be a tie into the ECV in that regard in terms of it's providing incentives and promoting. I think from a planning standpoint, we should be looking at possibly siting and locating under certain conditions. As Chris said, we don't want to get into design because I'm sure that the evolution of the design will change.
But it's even more than that. So in Brighton, I think it's Brighton right now, they're dealing with a case, it's either Brighton or Farrington. That basically they're going into a Wegmans. They're a billboard.
I'm sure, yeah.
So that, no, they're literally a billboard. They're selling advertising on it. That's how they're paying. for the
Oh,
electric. But now you've got a large video screen that's next to the road. Is that a distraction? Does that go into a public signage? Is it legal? So that's why I'm saying I thought it was gonna be pretty easy, that this is the form factor. Maybe you should have some parking spaces or something along those lines. It gets more fun.
Well, have fun.
I'll have some recommendations probably by that April 12th date. if not sooner.
Okay. Thank you again for doing that. Anybody else have anything? Cue Amanda.
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight at 7:16 PM. Hope to see you all in person soon.
Hi, Amanda.
Good
Thanks,
chair.
guys.
Got a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye, opposed? Good meeting, folks. Thank you.
Nice one.
Take care, everyone.
Angelo.